I do want to touch on the Danny Trejo film, Inmate 1 as well. How did your relationship with Danny come about, and what an unbelievable redemption story as well for him to be at the position in life where he is now?
It truly is one of the most remarkable like transformations of character like that's ever like. If you were to put it into a fictional movie, you would think it was like, or a scripted movie, you'd be like, that's ridiculous. Nobody could be facing the gas chamber, turn his life around, and become one of the, you know, arguably the most successful Mexican-American actor of all time. He's like, can't be done. That's ridiculous. But he did, right? And that all came to be because one of our producers, Rocky Medalliar, was working on an indie film with him in Utah called Cartel 2045.
Yeah.
And in Cartel 2045, we were working on set, and I was hanging out, and Danny's such a great guy when you meet him in person, like super funny. A lot of people think that because he didn't get much of a childhood when he was younger, because he was in and out of prisons and he was in a high stakes world really young, armed robberies and all the rest, that he now is a big joker. He's like the big kid now, right? And he's always trying to be. So when we met him, I was like, yeah, he's a really great guy. And my producing partner, Rocky's like, Adam, we should do a doc about Danny. And at the time, I only knew him as the actor, right? I recognized his face. And I was like, man, I don't really think he's strong. Like, for a feature film, it's got to be more than just you're a cool actor or that you've done. Like, you have to have some really cool personal stories as well as your professional accomplishments in order to be compelling and have all the winning pieces to a documentary. And then Rocky was like, man, you have to see his real story. You have to understand that he survived prison and he was doing heroin when he was like 12 and armed robberies and all the rest. And I was like, okay. And then when we found all that, I was like, man, we have to tell his story. Wow. And like, so then I got my director, Brett Harvey, on board. I called him and I'm like, dude, we have a chance to do this guy's story. I met him. He's great. And then Brett did the research. He's like, this guy's story is incredible. Adam, let's do it. I'll create a pitch book and design and we'll get this done. And then we met Danny, we showed him the pitch book, and Brett created this beautiful pitch book. It looked like a Barnes and Noble book or a chapters book, like a coffee table book. It looked amazing. And Danny's like, I'm in. This is incredible, guys. He's like, I'm in. You just have to convince my agent, and I'm not giving you this book back either because it's fantastic. It's mine. And we're like, that's your gift anyway, right? So, yeah. And then the 3-year journey or almost 4-year journey began after that.
Did he find it difficult speaking candidly about some of those dark moments of his early life, or was he quite not cold towards it, but he's just very open and relaxed about talking about all those sorts of things?
He was completely open. Danny's been sober for, I think, over 50 years. So part of, like, you know, when you're in AA or NA is that you're always talking about feelings. You're always talking about being honest and open. And so none of that was off limits. Like, he talked about stabbing people in prison and being stabbed and running protection rings and doing armed robberies. And he's like, oh yeah, sawed-off shotgun gets rid of superheroes and G.I. Joes really quick. He's like, you put a sawed-off shotgun in some guy's face, they don't want to be G.I. Joe, right? And that's how Danny had like such a great menacing face for Hollywood, is that when he was getting trained to be an armed robber when he was younger, he's like, the perfect armed robbery is that you're so intimidating that nobody has to get hurt. He's like, a lot of times the guns weren't even loaded. We would just go in there and be like, give me all the money, you motherfucker. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, take all the money, take everything, right? And then you can get out of there quick, right? So he was open about all that. His only thing he asked us, he's like, guys, I don't want you to glorify the violence that it encourages young people to go down my path. Yeah. My goal with this film is that I can show you don't want to go down this path. Although mine ended with a great positive story, 99% of them don't. He's like, if you are doing drugs and getting in trouble, you either die, go insane, or go to jail. Those are your 3 options, right? Yeah. That's the only thing that happens from that life. And we're like, no. We're like, Danny, we're only going into detail about that to show the hell that you went through, so that the hell that you served, let his sins and mistakes of his past be the ones so that you don't have to live it. But other than that, nothing was off limits with him. Like, he just went in and told story. If anything, it was like you'd ask him one question and he would talk for 25 minutes, similar to what I'm doing with you today. No, and then you'd have to chop that up. You'd have to, well, that's how we are too. We'd rather you talk and we get it and we have all these great stories and elements, rather than, you know, people that do 1-word answers. We're like, it was great working with Danny. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to need a little bit more than that to go. So,
have you ever had that as a documentary filmmaker where you've been like, I'm really excited to interview this guy, and then you get there and the guy's got nothing to tell. He's got nothing to say. And you're like, we're going to have to get rid of this guy real quick and draft someone else.
Absolutely. Well, you realize you blow through your questions and you're done really quick. We had it more early on than you have now. And that's because thanks to the internet, almost everybody's online in some form now. So even if you want to interview a doctor that has all the medical credentials that you really want to make an impact, say for the cannabis stuff, well, now a lot of them have done interviews and stuff. So you can go and see what they're like as a person. You can go and, so you're like, oh man, this guy's got great. So if there's 3 doctors you're trying to interview, you can kind of go to the one you're like, well, this guy has such great charisma and he looks good and he speaks well. And, you know, and for the cannabis ones, we wanted to get the ones that look less like hippies too. We're like, nah, this guy's a little too free lovey-dovey. And even though he's got an MD, he kind of like, so you could watch it. But, you know, nowadays with the internet, it's changed that where you don't have a ton of them. But there are days where there's certain people where you're like, I'm so excited to interview this person. Like, I'm going to come out of here with a new perspective on life. And then you come out and you're like, man, they were very disappointing. And then you have other people that you don't expect, like maybe an actor or something. You're like, they're going to have nothing, but we're going to get them for the celebrity punch. And then they blow your mind, right? And you're like, wow. Like one of them that really shocked me with that was when we interviewed Michelle Rodriguez for this. Like, she has some really great moments in Inmate that you would not expect, right? Like, because you always see her as this like beautiful badass, right? But she, you know, you could tell when we asked about the heroin, and she's got a great line in the film. She's like, oh, fuck, man. She's like, that's the problem, is that it's only blissful the first time. After that, it's just the chase, right? You're chasing it. Like, you know, there's always people that shock you, but we tend to be able to get away from the people that provide absolutely nothing nowadays, because we can do enough research beforehand and just be like, yeah, even though they have all the credentials, it looks good on paper or looks good for the title on the film, they don't provide enough to make it, you know, especially when you're doing a feature film. Like if you've got 90 minutes of content, those 90 minutes, every moment has to be crucial in driving the story. They can't just be there for flair and excitement. You have to constantly pull those out. We had to do a lot with Bisbing, because Bisbing's super charismatic and witty. And there's a lot of moments where a director's like, I love that moment. I'm like, I do too, but it doesn't drive the narrative. So put in the DVD features, right? Like it's a funny story, but it doesn't really drive this overall Rocky redemption story, right? So we'd have to lose it.